Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'll be covering Surah Hud, that is continuing it, verses 36 to 49, the concluding account of the nation of Nuh. These are the references, and this is our contact in case there is a question or a query regarding this presentation. Recap verses 25 to 35, which were covered in our previous presentation. The Quran brings before us the accounts of the messengers of Allah from the past to provide details of their struggles on the path of Deen. Here the account of Nuh is covered in some detail. I said in some detail because this account is also has appeared in other surahs of the Quran, which we will be dealing with at some later point. He passed the message of Wahi to his people, and those who were from the lower strata of society responded to the guidance and joined with Nuh. You remember, lower strata of the society means economically, and also people thought that they are of a low status as human beings, those who are in position of power and possessed more wealth. The important issue to which the Quran alluded to is that creating the class differentiation among equal beings leads to imbalances in a society. So in the case of this account of Hazrat Nuh, Quran has brought out this one single most important factor, that class differentiation within a society brings down the society, causes decline. And of course, this was not the only evil or wrong doing in that society. There were others as well, but this is the main focus of the Quran in this story of Hazrat Nuh. However, those who were rich and in a position of power refused to listen to the message and opposed it, as they did not approve of the message of Allah and wished to continue under the existing system of which they were beneficiaries. Nuh continued to warn them and told them that the existing system simply cannot continue uninhabited. When the time of respite will end, then they will face the devastating consequences of their deeds. Nuh also informed them that he is not interested in any material recompense for his efforts, as his reward is with Allah. It is not that he did not expect a reward, but in terms of passing on the message, despite the importance of the message and the eminence and loftiness implicit in it, he said that I do not want any benefit from you. I earn my own living, and all I want is that the society should be transformed for the good of everyone. He is a messenger of Allah, and his duty is to communicate Wahi to them. According to the law of requital, everyone is accountable for their own deeds, and ultimately the outcomes of human crimes lead to ruin and destruction. Let us go to the first verse of this presentation, 1136, understanding the finer details of the world in which we live. وَأُوحِيَ إِلَىٰ نُوحٍ أَنَّهُ لَنْ يُؤْمِنَ مِنْ قَوْمِكَ إِلَّا مَنْ قَدْ آمَنَ فَلَا تَبْتَئِسْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. At this point, Wahi was sent to Nuh that no more people other than those who have accepted Eimaan will accept Eimaan now after them. Hence, do not be unnecessarily distressed by whatever these people are doing. Your worries and anxieties will not be able to make any change in their condition. Now the time has come that you should dissociate from them. Very important point noted over here by the Quran. And let us expand it a bit further. Followers of the Quran need to be highly aware of the world around them. The efforts of Nuh on the path of Allah had now reached that stage where the message had been shared with all, and a sufficient time of respite had been given to his people to think over this and to mend their ways. We remember this message was not passed on over 1 year or few years, but a number of years. As noted in previous verses, there were not many who joined hands with Nuh for the establishment of the system under the direction of the Wahi of Allah. So the message was repeatedly passed on to them, and they were warned again and again that do not follow this line of living and change it, because there is gross injustice within the society, but they refuse to listen, particularly the people at the top. Nuh is quoted to have said elsewhere that قال نوح رب إنهم أسوني واتبعوا من لم يزده ماله وولده إلا خسارة. Nuh said, "O my Rabb, they have gone against me, but they obeyed those with wealth and children. give them no increase but only loss. And then he concludes, وَقَالَ نُوحٌ رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا. And Nuh said, "O my Rabb, leave not of the kafirin a single one on earth." Very strong statements, both these are. It's worth going through this Surah 71 because there are a number of issues mentioned over there by the Quran which can be related to the world in which we live. Since Allah knows the secrets of the hearts, hence He agrees with Nuh, and here it is confirmed by him that there are no more people among his nation who are looking for guidance. Therefore, the next stage of the law of requital will commence very soon. So an assessment was carried out by Nuh with regard to the people to whom he passed the message. And then Allah agreed with him. And that is the point we should keep in mind. Of course, that was a smaller society. In a world of 7.5 billion people, it is impossible to know where these people stand unless we give message to everyone over a period of time and we know that the message has been given and explained. This means that Nuh and Momineen need to construct an ark so that they could escape the impending flood and be saved as per the physical law of Allah. Now, further reflections on this verse. There are a few points here which need a profound reflection. Firstly, since the process of Wahi has been completed in the Quran, how will we know the state of the world in which we live in terms of acceptance of guidance? As noted previously, the Quran asks us to continue spreading the message using rational reasoning and not to feel stressed about the outcome of our efforts. Secondly, we need to remain updated about the state of people and their conduct in the world and the society in which we live. Because Nuh also came to this conclusion after watching their conduct over a period of time. In light of the Quranic values, for example, how the man-made system is conducting itself and the state of its decline. Through sharing the message and the response of the people, we come to grips with human psyche and its issues. So there is a lot to learn through this observation process where we interact with human beings around us. And of course, in today's world where media is very strong, and we can go over to the social media as well and see how people are thinking and how they are acting in their own life across the world. Thirdly, Allah guides us in this verse that we need to reach that level of development of the self where we come to terms with the deliberate wrongdoings of people which contribute to imbalances in the world. By coming to terms with that understanding, we need to become stress-free. Because if we are knowledgeable, if we know the causes of the effects or the causes of the crimes or wrongdoings in the world, then we will understand that these human beings are doing it deliberately, hence they are responsible for it. Part of this information gathering is to be cognizant of the changes taking place in the physical domain, for example, political changes, finance markets, manufacturing domain, military-industrial complex and its activities. And of course, we can relate it to wars, conflicts, and what is going on in the world. So that is important that we should keep abreast with what is happening in the world around us. Let us look at the next two verses, 11, 37 and 38, acquiring the ability to deal with destruction. وَاسْنَا الْفُلْكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا وَوَحْيِنَا وَلَا تُخَاطِبْنِي فِي الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا إِنَّهُمْ مُغْرَقُونَ وَيَصْنَعُ الْفُلْكَ وَكُلَّمَا مَرَّ عَلَيْهِ مَلَأٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُ قَالَ إِن تَسْخَرُوا مِنَّا فَإِنَّا نَسْخَرُ مِنكُمْ كَمَا تَسْخَرُونَ. O Nuh, now begin to construct an ark under our supervision and according to our Wahi, and be warned. Do not say a word to us about these transgressors, because their destruction has now been confirmed due to their deeds. They will all be drowned. And this is a defining moment in this struggle by Nuh and Momineen in that piece of land. That now the decision has been made by the law of requital of Allah that these people have reached that stage where their time of respite is about to end. Consequently, he began constructing an ark. When the leaders of his nation used to pass by and see him constructing an ark, they would ridicule him. In response, Nuh would say to them that if you wish to make fun of us, then do so. The way in which you are mocking us today, a time will come when we will laugh at your stupidities. And this is quite normal that people, when they are not aware of the consequences of their wrongdoings, as of today, for example, if somebody warns them that you are going to get bad results in, let's say, a few years' time, they mock. Because if they don't mock, they will take heed of it and not do it. So this is something which is related to human psyche. Further instructions to Nuh and Momineen, and we'll expand these aspect a bit further. If we recall, Allah has told us that providing protection to Jamaat of Momineen falls under the commitment as per His law. For example, in this verse, Quran says, وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نَصْرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It was due from us to aid those who had accepted Eimaan. Because the whole point is that if everyone is going to die because of this flooding, then there's no point in giving message to them. Then what will happen on the earth? Because Haqq has to survive after Batil is eliminated. The whole tussle between Haqq and Batil is to establish the system of Deen and to relieve mankind from the clutches of injustice and tyranny, freeing them from fear and huzn. And if the Jamaat of Momineen also becomes destroyed together with the Kafirin, then this does not make any sense. These verses need to be analyzed with this context in mind. Here, Nuh and of course Jamaat of Momineen with him is instructed via Wahi that in view of the impending storms and floods, construct an ark. This could either mean that Nuh was guided regarding its design and method through Wahi, or that he used his intellect and reasoning to construct one which Allah has related to Himself. So it makes no difference as long as we understand that Nuh was told about the impending arrival of a very big storm in that valley, in that area, and he was told to create means or procure means for survival. And for that, best way against floods was to have a strong boat. Together with this direction, a very important guidance was provided to Nuh and to us that since the destruction is coming and it is not going to be a pretty scene, hence there are a few advanced cautions which you and your companions need to be fully aware of. When people go through these accounts, they seldom look at it that what effects these things have. And that is why Quran says that you should pause and then reflect on these things, that what exactly the Quran is telling us in terms of this event which is about to take place. Few more reflections. Firstly, when the destruction descends, let the cause of the destruction be part of your psyche, i.e., it will be a consequence of their evil deeds. So that is important, that we shouldn't have any sympathy with the people who do wrong, because once they die and we see them floating around in the water, then we shouldn't get upset on that. And that's something very hard to train ourselves, educate ourselves, and remain aware of it. Secondly, do not start to feel sorry for them and begin supplicating to save them. Remember, they are going to be drowned and you need to plan and prepare yourselves for that major incident now, both mentally and physically. And that is what the Quran is drawing our attention to, that these events are very devastating and these do affect human psyche. So be aware of it. Then the Quran outlines to us the mentality and conduct of those who reject the message of Allah. Instead of letting Nuh and the Momineen get on with the task of construction of the ark, they began to mock them whenever they passed by, because they did not believe that there is going to be a big storm and these guys are gone mad and they are constructing this ark for nothing. They are wasting their time. But they kept on doing it because they knew under the light of the law of requital and of course Wahi, that it is bound to come. This construction would have taken some time, maybe months, and they had to listen to these taunts on a regular basis. So they had to get used to it, and that is why Wahi helped them to get used to it and be tolerant of it. And this is a lesson for us as well. This may become a cause for distress and anxiety for some among the Jamaat. However, Allah has guided them here by saying, think ahead to the time when the floods will arrive, and then the Momineen will be the ones who will rejoice at the elimination of unjust tyrants from their land. Let us go to the next verse, 1139. Wahi of Allah does not leave any doubt. فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ مَنْ يَأْتِيهِ عَذَابٌ يُخْزِيهِ وَيَحِلُّ عَلَيْهِ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. And there will not be long to wait for this. You will soon enough witness who it is that is visited with a destruction which will ruin him. And that will not be a temporary punishment, rather it will be one that annihilates forever. The words over here, Azabul Muqim, it is not going to be averted as far as these people are concerned. These set of people are going to face it in totality, and that will be the end of them. Allah's laws are precise and firm. The Quran then sums it up by stating, soon will you know, فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ, about this destruction, and though at present there appears to be no sign of it, your deeds have reached that state of evil where it is around the corner. This punishment will precisely fit the crimes as far as this life is concerned and end your physical existence in this world. We have talked about this thing that death is a fact of life. Over here, what is happening is that the time of death has been advanced, it has come forward. You will bring this humiliation and shame on your own selves for which you were warned over a sufficiently long period of time, but you failed to take advantage of this law of respite. Then the Quran states categorically, leaving no doubt in mind, that this punishment of theirs is not going to end soon. It will remain in place as after their physical end in this world, their undeveloped self will have nothing in the hereafter. It is a short verse, but it sums up the seriousness of human creation, which is in possession of a self which is subject to the sphere of the law of the quieter. Here the Quran invites us to note the importance of our short stay in this worldly life and compares the thought process of Momineen and Kafireen. Let us go to the next verse, level 40, instructions provided for the post-destruction era. حتى إذا جاء أمرنا وفارت النور قل نحمل فيها من كل زوجين اثنين وأهلك إلا من سبق عليه القول ومن آمن وما آمن معه إلا قليل. Because these people had made it their practice to oppose Nuh and to mock him in every matter, therefore they did not pay any serious attention to the issue of his constructing an ark. Because this is the human nature as well, that when we take things lightly and we take it jokingly, we don't register it in our psyche. We try to dispel it, we try to dismiss it. Otherwise, had they employed their intellect and reasoning, even the slightest, and had listened to the way in which Nuh was warning them of the impending danger, then they would not have behaved thus. In any event, they kept ridiculing him until the moment arrived when, according to the law of Allah, rainwater started descending in torrents from the surrounding hills in the valley, and it took the shape of a flood. We instructed Nuh to keep 2 pairs of everything which was required in the ark with him, and to also take your family. And over here, inverted commas, I put it because this point will come in the next few verses, along with you, except those whom it has already been decreed that they are deserving of punishment due to their wrong conduct. And that was, i.e., the son of Nuh and his wife. Furthermore, also take those people along with you who have already accepted Eimaan. They were not great in number. And that is important because Quran over here said, وَمَا آمَنَا مَعَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, that those who have Eimaan, and they were not many. So numbers is not an issue, and we'll reflect on that. Momineen need to plan ahead for all eventualities. We have seen in the accounts of the previous messengers, for example, Yusuf, Ibrahim, Musa, and Harun, that the Quran had asked them to plan ahead. Planning for risk management has become a proper field which is followed in the developed world. It is called hazard study or hazard and operability study. So whatever is constructed, for example, some industry, some machinery, then they go through a risk management, a risk assessment. This forms part of projects to define potential risks and their management. Costs of managing a risk are allocated, and at times these risks are also scored against a set criteria. So there is a message for us as well that we should look at the risks within our own life and see that how do we counter it in case those risks come before us or they appear before us. We have seen here the guidance provided by Allah to Nuh, i.e., firstly, construct an ark which can survive this fierce storm and deluge. Secondly, round up animals and means of sustenance to cater for the initial post-storm phase. Thirdly, only take those people with you who are Momineen. Because if he takes other than Momineen as well out of sympathy, then of course he's going to again have problems after he settles down on earth. Do not insist on taking others, be firm in resolve. Fourthly, do not become sentimental over the destruction of those who committed fasad on Allah's land and created injustice. There is a lot there to think through these verses. The rest of the details, Momineen are expected to work out themselves. For example, any first aid, of course, of that time when there were natural remedies, clothing, water, etc. Allah has made it clear to us that there were not many Momineen who volunteered to strive on the path of Allah. So we need not worry about numbers. 1141, always remain focused on the aim. وَقَالَ أَرْكَبُوا فِيهَا بِسْمِ اللَّهِ مَجْرَهَا وَمُرْسَاهَا إِنَّ رَبِّي لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And here we can see the use of Bismillah. Therefore, Nuh told those people to board the ark. They inquired, where are we to go? At this, Nuh told them, do not ask about this, just enter the boat. This boat will sail in the name of Allah and will come to a halt in His name. All this is taking place according to His Wahi. However, be certain of this, that no trouble will befall us due to this. This is because the law of Rububiyyat of Allah, according to which all this is being done, contains the means of protection and the means of nourishment within it. So the bottom line which Quran is telling to Momineen through Nuh is that this is according to a set plan of Allah. People who reject Wahi, this is the end of them, and people who accept Wahi, now they are the ones who are going to reap the benefits of disobedience. Further elaboration, here our attention is drawn to a few important aspects in the establishment of the system of Deen. We see that these Momineen have boarded the ark and they will now witness the demise of all those who resisted and opposed the guidance of Allah. They have prepared themselves for this terrible event, not easy to see the destruction of their homes and the people with whom they had lived for a significant part of their lives. It's an emotive issue as well, and an issue of understanding that how we have to, those who have come to the Quran and looking for the system of Deen, how they have to become firm-footed and develop that resolve. And we have seen, even in today's world, when there is a war and people die and their dead bodies fly around and the helicopters they fire on, for example, marriage parties, and see what happens on ground. So all these things we should keep in mind, that human beings have to be prepared for these events. They themselves are not certain about their future either. All they know is that this ark of theirs will of a surety land somewhere after the flooding is over. They know they will have to kickstart their lives again, for example, finding a suitable piece of land, food, shelter. The messengers assures them that things will go in their favor, hence have Eimaan and keep following the instructions of Wahi. So at this stage, they don't know where that boat will lead them. But Quran has reassured them that since Allah knows the facts of the unseen, so they should have Eimaan of the unseen, that this boat will definitely take them to a better place. Here the Quran also makes clear the meaning of Bismillah Majraha wa Mursaha, sign from Allah with all His attributes applicable here, that this ark will move or rest according to physical laws, and then it provides reassurance by stating, because they'll be sitting, just imagine they're sitting in the boat, which boat is going up and down, and there's a strong winds as well, there might be hills around. And that they will fear as well that lest this boat might also drown. And Quran has told them that don't worry about it. If it stops or it moves, it will take you to that destination which has been more or less arranged for you. And then it provides reassurance by stating, Inna Rabbi la Ghafurur Rahim. See the attribute of Rabb here, and then Ghafur and Rahim. That is Rububiyyat, protection, and further nourishment is part of this whole process. Certainly, my Rabb is all protecting and all nourishing. Let us expand this a bit further. Continuing it further, as we have seen, Nuh and Momineen are acting as part of the program of Deen, and Allah is guiding them through His Wahi. Now, the Quran provides us with the same guidance. Here, first, our attention is pointed to all the divine attributes which we need to keep in mind, i.e., that all this is taking place to accomplish the task of Deen. Each member of the Jamaat needs to be fully convinced that a successful outcome is awaiting them once this phase of Allah's program is over. That is, this is the part of that Eimaan in the unseen. What is the next phase of this program? Rububiyyat is the aim. So after the removal of hindrances on this path, the edifice of Deen will now be raised in the land, i.e., wherever this ark comes to a halt. Two divine attributes, Inna Rabbi la Ghafurur Rahim, will assure protection and nourishment on this new land. And that also means that we, the Jamaat of Momineen and Nuh, have to also know about this, that they have to have a protection in that area in terms of food security, in terms of their own security, and of course they have to work hard to create the means of sustenance. However, this will be a gradual process, stage by stage, based on good planning and sustained efforts of everyone. Next verse 1142, Kufr leaves negative effect on human psyche. Wahi tajri bihim fi mawjin kal jibale wa nada Nuhun abnahu wa kana fi mazilin ya bunayya arka maana wa la takum ma'al kafirin. Hence they set off, their ark was taking them safely through tempestuous waves which were rising as high as the hilltops. Before the ark set off, Nuh called to his son who had not joined with his Jamaat but had remained separate, that, O son, come on board with us and leave the company of those who are kafireen, people who have rejected divine guidance. So here comes a very delicate moment for Nuh as the messenger of Allah, that his own son had refused to accept the message of Wahi, and he wanted to take his own course, his own path, and did not wish to come into the boat. And that is the exchange of wording has been reported by the Quran here. Through the Quran, we can differentiate between Eimaan and Kufr. Here we come to an important point in this account of Nuh, which contains a great lesson and caution for students of the Quran and the system of Deen. We have witnessed that not everyone around us accepts the guidance of the Quran, and as the Jamaat of Momineen starts to form, our own kith and kin do not join in this. Initially, it makes no difference whether they join or not. However, with the passage of time, this Jamaat gains strength. This is exactly what happened in this account of Nuh and his Jamaat. Previously, they lived together and nobody feared that there is going to be any flooding. Even Hazrat Nuh did not know that there is going to be a flooding. All he knew was that the end of these people is not going to be a pleasant one. But when this situation developed, now was a time of differentiation between Momineen and Kafireen. His son and wife did not wish to be part of this Jamaat and decided to make his own decision, i.e., not to board the ark. However, since Nuh knew the laws of Allah, which were based on Wahi and through his own developed self as well, he was fully aware that this storm, which is forecast, will not leave anyone else alive. He warned his son about this so that he could prolong his physical life a little more. The last part of the verse sums up the two nations theory, وَلَا تَكُنْ مَعَ الْكَافِرِينَ, not to be with the kafireen, i.e. those who are against Allah's program. 1143, when the time of respite ends, قَالَ سَاوِي إِلَىٰ جَبَلٍ يَاسِمُونِي مِنَ الْمَاءِ قَالَ لَآسِمَ الْيَوْمَ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَهُ وَحَالَ بَيْنَهُمَا الْمَوْجُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْمُغْرَقِينَ. This is about the son. He replied, you go, I do not wish to go with you. At least he was very firm on his own belief system. If it does happen, thus then I will take refuge on some hilltop which will save me from the flood. At this, Nuh stated, O son, you are lost in a misconception. Today there is no one who can save from this storm which is coming according to the law of Allah. Only he can be saved from this who, after accepting Eimaan in Allah, take refuge in the domain of his Rahmat. The conversation had reached to this point when a mighty wave arose between the two of them, and he too drowned along with the others. Further elaboration of few points. We need to examine the aspects illustrated here of the human psyche in the event that a similar situation arises during our lifetime. Firstly, it is not his son alone whom Nuh is addressing. There are others too with him. Nuh is addressing his son directly and telling the others with him indirectly that this raging storm laden with heavy rain is not a normal event. It is part of that warning from the direction of Allah which I have been giving you till now. This is going to cut short your physical life. Secondly, it is part of the functioning of the law of requital, and this destruction will lead to the emergence of a new era in the land. Hence, if you wish to take benefit from this rahmat of Allah, then come aboard this ark. The choice is still yours. Thirdly, the verse tells us that they all drowned together because they wished to be together as rejectors of the Wahi of Allah, i.e., this is how they wish to say goodbye to this life, and of course, they will be together in the hereafter. And that is something very important for all of us, that when these kind of events arrive in this world because of our own deeds, and Momineen become dissociated from those who are not, then essentially their journey of the hereafter starts here. So over here we can see that how Nuh and Momineen in that ark have become separated from those whose life has been cut short. And this is something which we need to keep in mind as well. Level 44, everything in the universe follows the laws of Allah. We discover this to understand their functioning. Wakila ya ardu ablai maika wa yasma'u akli wa zizal ma'u wa kuzil amru wastawat alal judi. Wakila bodal lil qawmiz zalimin. Meanings of the verse, and then there was a decree of Allah that, O earth, swallow your water, and O clouds, halt your rain. Just see how beautifully the Quran has put together over here the expression of stopping the rain and stopping the storm. And so the water receded, and in this way that event ended. And the ark of Nuh came to a halt, safe and sound and Judy. And the Jamaat of Momineen were informed that those oppressors who used to mistreat you like this have become deprived of life and its prosperities. Further reflections on this verse. Here the Quran has not gone into any details about the intensity and duration of this rainstorm. But those of us who might have experienced some flash flooding, in fact, there should be some YouTube videos as well. If we look at the flash flooding, it comes very rapidly and people hardly have a time to escape. However, we can draw the conclusion that this storm did the task for which it had materialized as per the physical laws of Allah. The Wahi of Allah had provided a prediction to Nuh and Momineen. And over here, I've quoted from my own study of hydrology. In hydrology, statistically, there are such events predicted and quoted as being 1 in 10 years, 1 in 50 years, 1 in 100 years, or, for example, 1 in 1,000 years events. And this does not mean that 1 in 100 years event will only happen once in 100 years. It could happen tomorrow and it could happen after a week or a few weeks as well. So one can have 2 consecutive events as well. It is the way this is represented statistically. For example, road drainage systems are designed based on the hydrological data of 1 in 10 years, flooding in urban areas. Because if they build 1 in 100 years, then it will be very expensive. They will have to put in very big diameter pipes. And that is why some limited flooding is accepted within the streets. While motorways are designed, for example, on 1 in 100 years flooding data, because heavy flooding cannot be accepted on motorways because it can lead to some accidents due to high speed. Allah has then described the next step in language, which in itself is a marvel of the Quran and which provides reassurance to the Momineen. Once the task of elimination was completed precisely and accurately in the way the law of requital wished it to be concluded, the next issue was to halt the rain and bring about normality, so that the ark would come to a halt at its intended place. Here the Quran has noted that the ark came to a halt on Judy. It could be the name of a place and can also mean a pleasant land where things could be progressed at a rapid pace and human efforts could bear fruit. For example, a very beautiful and fertile land. We can look into Lughat al-Quran for this word beauty. There is some more detail given there. All this was done to fulfill the command of Allah as already communicated to Nuh and his Jamaat, now preserved in the Quran for us. Why was this done? Now that is the question which arises in our mind. And let us look at it so that it is left as an evidence for all times for mankind that the consequence of doing injustice and oppression in the world is that it comes to an end when the time of respite is crossed by unjust people. Everything follows Allah's laws, and no one in the universe can go against his laws beyond the limits defined by the law of requital. Despite the fact that all human beings have to die at some point in time, those human beings who cross the limits defined by the law of requital can end up cutting short their stay collectively so that the world becomes free from their injustice and tyranny. Let's go to the next verse, 1145, the issue of defining a family made clear by Allah for all times to Momineen. وَنَادَى نُوحٌ رَبَّهُ فَقَالَ رَبِّ إِنَّ ابْنِي مِنْ أَهْلِي وَإِنَّ وَعْدَكَ الْحَقُّ وَأَنْتَ أَحْكَمُ الْحَاكِمِينَ. When peace was acquired in this way, then Nuh called on his Rabb and said, "O my Rabb, my son was from my family, and it was your promise that my family will be saved. And your promises are always true, and there is none above you who can alter your commands. In view of these realities, my son should have remained protected. Why was he drowned?" Further elaborations. Now we should keep in mind that this supplication could be loud because remember, he is among Momineen who have now escaped that flooding. And it could be in his heart as well, but as Allah knows the secrets of the heart, so over here Quran has recorded it for all times. Despite being the messenger of Allah and the recipient of Wahi, Nuh was also a human being who had a strong biological affinity towards his son. This could have been his thought or could have been his supplication out loud as an expression of his profound grief over this loss. And grief is part of it. There is no doubt in that, even if one has acquired a very strong determination and steadfastness, still loss of immediate family members does cause grief. Allah has not gone into finer details, but has noted this for our guidance as students of the Quran. It is possible that Nuh did not witness the death of his son through the storm as his ark moved away from the valley, and he may have thought that his son was still alive. Now, this comment, I put it down as a possibility as well, but it makes no difference. We shouldn't get too much into it because this is not an issue. Here he inquires from Allah that since he was from his family, hence his son should have survived. I put his family under inverted commas because Quran has defined it differently. Despite not accepting Eimaan in the way of Allah, here the Quran illustrates the principle for defining the structure of a family based on Eimaan for us, and this episode is saved here for all times. While stating this, Nuh also clarifies that he understands two issues. Firstly, that he understands al-Haq, and secondly, that Allah's laws are supreme and these are meant to bring out constructive results. And constructive results wouldn't have come out unless these people who were creating facade injustice in the land were eliminated forever. There is an instruction here for us to acquire the ability to intellectually analyze in the light of the Quran. Biological affinities should not hamper our efforts on the path of Deen. And that is the bottom line for us. 1146, Eimaan and Saleh conduct define our status in the world. Qala ya Nuhu innahu laysa min ahlika innahu amalun ghayru salihin fala tas'alni ma laysa laka bihi ilm inni aizuka an takuna min al-jahilin. A number of points are covered in this verse. I have covered the first one in red. The Quran says that he was not from your family, ahlika. Innahu laysa min ahlika. And then because why he was not from your family? Because his deeds amalu ghayru salihin. His deeds were not saleh. And then the second part, I will elaborate it in the next slide. At this, Allah said, "O Nuh, you have not correctly understood the meaning of family. Though he was undoubtedly your son, he was not from among your family. Only those can be from your family whose deeds are saleh and whose deeds were non-saleh. And we know saleh are those deeds which help us to develop ourselves and then be able to understand the system of deen and then work on that, towards that system coming together. This is that criterion of own and others of which you did not have knowledge, hence you should not have supplicated for that thing from me about which you have no knowledge. I advise you about these matters so that you can have knowledge of these realities. Expanding it a bit more, here comes the great truth of defining a family in the light of the Wahi of Allah. Allah has reminded Nuh and us that when people come to the path of the Quran, then they enter into a new family structure which is higher than the biological family system to which they have belonged. That is previously no choice involved in this basic relationship by birth. Because biological relationship is beyond our control. If somebody is my brother, he is my brother. So if somebody is a son, is a son, we can't take it away. But these relationships which are established through Eimaan are totally different. They are of a very, very high level of eminence. However, this does not happen in one day. This reality dawns on Momineen gradually as they achieve a higher understanding and their developed self seek out those who are on this path. It appears that Nuh was not clear about this definition of the family under Wahi until then, and like Ibrahim, he wished to clarify another issue. If you remember, Ibrahim had posed the question to Allah how to give life to the dead. Of course, that question was different from this, but what I mean is Master did ask questions and those answers have been recorded in the Quran. The Quran has made this point clear at a number of places that whatever hampers our progress on the path of Allah needs to be excluded. And we need to come to terms with this issue of bringing a revolutionary change in our thinking and hence in ourselves. Another important instruction is given here. فَلَا تُسْأَلْنِ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. Do not question on something about which you do not have knowledge. So first, carry out some kind of an inner analytical thinking and go through it in the light of Wahi and gain some knowledge as well, some further information. Acquire knowledge first and then ask where one may not understand. Because it helps to then understand that the answer coming from Wahi, where does it fit in? If we have no knowledge then and ask a question, then where are we going to fit that answer which we get from the Quran? Firstly, we will not be able to get that answer correctly in the first place. But even if we manage to, or somebody explains to us, then if we do not have knowledge, then it is not possible to understand the context of it. Level 47, remaining cognizant of the importance of the self-development. قَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي أَعُوذُ بِكَ أَنْ أَسْأَلْكَ مَا لَيْسَ لِي بِهِ عِلْمٌ وَإِلَّا تَغْفِرْ لِي وَتَرْحَمْنِي أَكُنْ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. The meaning of the verse is, Nuh replied, O my Rabb, if I supplicate to you about such thing which is not within my knowledge, then you know that it is due to not knowing about it, not because of some other thought. This is why I expect that in these matters your blessing and support will continue to take full care of me. If I do not receive the means of protection and nourishment from your direction, then I will be ruined. Further reflections on this verse. Here Allah has quoted the response by Nuh and has said that he understood the issue quickly in the light of Wahi and also related to the situation on the ground. Acknowledged his shortcoming, all those who were with him as Momineen had made that decision to be in the ark for a higher aim of life. And it was not an easy decision, leaving all family behind and outside the ark and knowing that they will never see them again and they're going to be destroyed and their dead bodies might be floating around. It was not an easy decision. They had to have a very strong will, very strong resoluteness to get onto that ark. They may have also moved away from their families and relatives who may have rejected the message of Allah. Two important divine attributes are noted here for our attention, Tagfirli wa Tarhamni, protection and nourishment. There is no point in escaping the floods and not then be able to grow further and prosper. Both these are fundamental in the establishment of the system of deen, and Nuh and the Momineen need to manifest these on a larger scale. The realization of the laws sustained by not following the path of Wahi holds the key to understanding the Quran, and it is emphasized here at the end of the verse, Akun minal khasirin, that if we do not follow this path, then we are going to be among those who suffer. 1148, the law of requital will help you and will continue to operate in the new land. Ila yanuho ahbit bisalamin minna wa barakatin alayka wa ala umamin mimman ma'aka wa umamun salu matteuhum summa yamassuhum minna azabun alim. We said, O Nuh, now disembark from the ark because there is no longer any danger. It is possible this thought may arise in the hearts of your companions that the land which has been underwater for so many days, how can the means of sustenance for life be obtained from it? Do not worry about this. You and your companions will obtain the means of sustenance in abundance. As far as those groups are concerned who will not work with you, they will also receive worldly means of sustenance according to physical laws. But their future will be dark, and ultimately they will be engulfed in a painful chastisement. Further elaborations. Having reached the point where things became normal after the water receded and the land became dry, Allah has stated two important points for our guidance. Firstly, there is no further threat to your security, and the state of peace has arrived after a long period of trial and tribulation for all of you. Remember how many years of suffering they had gone through. And it was a tough ordeal for them. And now another tough ordeal had arrived because immediately after the floods, now they had to restart their life. Secondly, I noted in this term for barakat and alaika, there is going to be an opportunity for all to grow both physically as well as in relation to the development of yourselves, because now they will be able to follow the guidance of Wahi, and that should multiply their prosperities. However, having gradually established the system under the guidance of Wahi, as you multiply and the population starts to increase again, there will emerge those people who will not agree with the guidance of Wahi, because the cycle will start again, despite the fact that now Momineen will be the ones who will be running the affairs of that society, that village, that town, whatever it turns out to be. But there will be people who will again start disagreeing with them and will not accept the message of Wahi. You all need to bear this in mind and remain aware that this state of tussle between Batil and Haqq will always continue. The point to remember is that under the physical laws, the means of sustenance will be available to everyone. However, if the guidance of Wahi is not followed, then they will reap the recompense of their wrong deeds, which will take them to their own ruin. 1149, aspects of historical accounts covered in the Quran are based on facts and provide help to Momineen. Tilka min nambail gaibe nuhiha ilaika ma kunta talamuha anta wala qaumuka min qabli hadha fasbir innal aqibatul lil muttaqin. And I've highlighted the important parts, particularly the last one, innal aqibatul lil muttaqin. The Quran has put that emphasis here on muttaqin. O Rasool, these are those matters of the unseen which we are narrating to you via Wahi. They are unseen because you and your people before this were not aware of these details. And we are informing you for this reason so that your heart becomes strengthened from these facts from history. That no matter how many hardships have to be faced in the beginning, in the end, success belongs to this very Jamaat which observes the laws of Allah. When this is the reality, then remain steadfastly on your program. Your success is assured. Allah helps those who are muttaqi. And we know muttaqi is a very high level of self-development under the definition of the Quran. And that is why Quran at the beginning says, Hudan lil muttaqin, that the Quran is for those who wish to become muttaqi. Elaborating this verse a bit further, the account of the people of Nuh contains clear guidance for us. We have also seen in the account of Bani Israel in Surah Yunus that it needs years of persistent striving on the path of Allah after accepting Eimaan and then continuing to perform salient deeds. Allah recognizes human efforts on his path, and then by narrating these details tells us that this is a set defined path which is like an exact formula which needs to be followed. Let us look at the account of Nuh noted here. Firstly, for years, Nuh kept reminding people about the Wahi of Allah, and the message was rejected, especially by those in power. The others followed them rather than coming towards Nuh and the Momineen. Secondly, some of those who were from the working and lower class accepted Eimaan as they were the ones who understood the Wahi of Allah and the rationale behind it. Thirdly, society reached a stage where it was concluded by Nuh and also by Allah that no one else is going to accept Eimaan after this. Hence, the Momineen need to be separated from the Kafirin so that Deen could be established. Up to this point, not much had changed in the society. There were a few Momineen and the majority remained as rejectors of Al-Haq. The society had sunk into an abyss and had to be dealt with justly under the domain of the law of requital. Remember what Allah has said at the beginning of today's presentation, that no more people are going to accept Eimaan because Allah knows the secrets of the hearts. Account of the people of Nuh. These accounts from the past are succinctly described to us to provide reassurance that Allah's laws do not change and these consistently treat everyone the same in every era. Since the same human beings reside on the planet today, hence what happened then will occur again if the Jamaat of Momineen emerges and follows the path followed by Yusuf, Ibrahim, Lut, Musa, Yunus, Nuh. The circumstances may be different, but the laws will always remain the same and the Quranic formula will never lose its efficacy. Firstly, Allah is still there as He is Huwal Hayyul Qayyum, that He is alive and He is well established. Secondly, the same human being with the same latent potentials. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. So the Quran says that human beings are created with very high latent potentials, very lofty latent potentials, but only in case they use them, in case they bring them out by using the guidance of Wahi. Thirdly, Amanu wa amilu salihate, that is, after accepting Eimaan, they should do those deeds which bring out their best, which bring out what is kept within them as Ahsan Taqweem. This recipe will bring out the best if human beings understand it and then adhere to it all together. Fourthly, Batil will remain in place until Haqq emerges and replaces it. If there is no Al-Haq in the world, then essentially human beings live in such a system, remain deprived of this choice. It is the Jamaat of Momineen who arrive and create this option and choice for mankind. Because if there is no Jamaat of Momineen, then there is no system of Deen anywhere in the world. And if there is no system of Deen anywhere in the world, human beings only have one option, that is to continue living under the man-devised system, which is based on Batil. This is stated in the sum up, Innal Aqibata lil Muttaqeen, that in case we want to have a system of Deen, then we have to become Muttaqi, come together and keep striving for this till we can establish the system. Now, schematic summary of the events. I added this slide at the end just to illustrate it a bit more succinctly. People in the town, city, living their life, and Wahi of Allah is sent down through Nabi and Messenger Nuh. Nuh understands the message and then starts to share it with his people. He points to them the imbalances in the society, and due to this, the environment of fear and huzn in which they live. Then people at the lower end of the society respond to Wahi, because Wahi is essentially comes to give rights to people. And when we talk of rights to the people, it is the people at the lower end of the society who are yatim and miskeen and treated unjustly, who to them it appeals and join with Nuh. But we should also keep it in mind that it is not about just alleviating them from the economic problems. Wahi comes to give them the aspects of self-development as well, because Wahi caters for both. To remove economic deprivation is definitely part of it, but it is far higher than that. Those at the top in a position of power reject the message and wish to continue with the system of which they are the beneficiaries. So those who wish to implement this system, who want to work for the system of Deen, must have a developed self themselves. Because if they don't have a developed self, they cannot simply understand the efficacy and importance of the system of Deen. Nuh warns them that this state cannot continue uninhabited. They continue to reject. This takes place for years on end. Gradually, a stage comes where Nuh and Momineen arrive at this conclusion that no more people are going to accept the guidance of Allah. The time of respite in their case is coming to an end very soon. Allah agrees with Nuh as he knows the secrets of the hearts. Nuh and Momineen, of course, Nuh is directed to construct an ark to survive the impending massive flood. Nuh, together with his companions, builds the ark, and this is going to take a long time and it's a lot of hard work. Just imagine that at that time, of course, they must have all the tools and everything, because the people who joined with Nuh were also from a lower class. They were mostly of the technical class. They must be carpenters and ironsmiths and others. He carries out detailed administrative planning to carry all that is required as means of sustenance to start a new life after the flooding stops. A heavy rain-laden storm arrives and the ark with Nuh and Momineen sails through it without harm and takes them to safety. The evil people of the society are destroyed, their physical life cut short as per the advance warning of Allah. Nuh is provided with further guidance about the future. And the note here is the question for us is, where are we in these stages? And we can figure out ourselves as well, and we can discuss it under discussion that where are we in the world? Because we see the way world is going, and it is of course on the decline, and the systems are in a different transitory stages. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of belief.